And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I am so excited to host Vera Kurian, Ph.D. scientist and real-life expert on psychopaths, here to give us the scoop about her brand new red-hot book, Never Saw Me Coming. Vera, we see you coming. Give us a scoop on this book.
Hi, thank you for having me. This is my debut novel. It's a thriller about an 18-year-old college student who is a diagnosed psychopath. And she's entering a special clinical panel study where 7 psychopaths get to go to school for free in exchange for donating their minds and bodies to science for those 4 years. But really, she's there because she wants to hunt down and kill a boy who goes to this college who she knows from her past. But what she doesn't know is that someone is hunting down and trying to kill the 7 psychopaths in the program. So that's the setup of the novel.
Tasty. Let's get into every dirty detail. But first, I just want to welcome everyone who's watching on Facebook, who's watching on YouTube, who's watching on Murder by the Book, who's watching on my channels, who's watching in my private Facebook group, Mystery and Thriller Mavens, whoever you are and wherever you're watching from. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you've been here before, you know the drill. And if you're new, welcome. Here's the drill. Every Monday for hashtag Mystery Mondays, because you know Mondays can be murder, I give you my hand-picked featured authors, and you get to ask them anything. Ask Vera about this book. Ask Vera about psychopaths. Ask her about her Ph.D. Ask her about her writing process. Ask her about something she's never told anyone before. I got lots of questions, and I know you do too. So get them going in the comments, and I will get them right on over to Vera. This is your time to ask my authors anything. So and if you're a member of my Facebook group, Mystery and Thriller Mavens, you get to submit questions in advance. So while you're thinking of your questions, you're typing them, your little fingers are typing fast in that box. I'm going to kick off with some of the questions that were submitted in advance. So our fellow thriller author, Thea Sutton, would like to know, and I want to make sure I got this exactly right. She said, Vera, is your protagonist based on a real case study of a patient? Is she a composite, or is she a personality type? We need to know.
Well, just to clarify, in case anyone thought that I am a clinical psychologist who works with psychopath, I'm not. I'm not a clinical psychologist. I'm a social psychologist. I can talk more about that if you want me to. So Chloe is...
Wait, let's just really quickly hear the difference between those two different kinds of psychologists, because I actually didn't know. So tell us the difference between those things.
Yeah, so a clinical psychologist is someone with a PhD or a PsyD, which is a similar degree, where they work with patients. So they work in the field of abnormal psychology. So do counseling psychologists. A social psychologist, and there's all these other fields that don't see patients. So like social psychologists, learning and behavior, experimental, quantitative, where you're studying some aspect of human behavior, but not necessarily abnormal psychology. So I actually studied how politics relates to psychology. So things like intergroup relations, racism, American electoral politics. So my interest in psychopathy was just sort of separate from this, but informed by my research background, because I'm capable of reading like scientific studies in a way that maybe a lay person couldn't. And then I kind of had a true crime interest, so I kind of combined the two. But I'm not someone who's seen patients who are psychopaths. I do think that I've met a few psychopaths in my day.
I think we've all met a few. Am I right, Vera?
Yeah, and if you could go through and like look up the criteria, and you might be able to think of someone, you know. But to get back to the original question, I mean, I think I had the initial idea for the character of Chloe, where I pretty much knew she'd be like a very intelligent, determined, someone who gets straight A's, but is also a psychopath. And then I kind of already knew about psychopathy at that point, but then I did a little more research to kind of fill out her character in its entirety. So I wouldn't say that she's just like, I took the criteria and then just made that a character. Like, she's a whole 360-degree person who has this diagnosis.
Tasty. Okay. Well, thank you for that inside scoop. I want to welcome, we're getting hearts up on Facebook. Thanks for the hearts, guys. You know, I love me some hearts. Okay. Welcome, Dana. Welcome, Joyce. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Leslie saying hello from Canada. I love Leslie's Canadian hello. That's like her trademark thing. And I love it. It brings me so much joy. Leslie, hi. Welcome. Great to have you, top community member there. Welcome, Jane. Thanks for all the hearts up, fam. I love it. Okay, so let's talk about, welcome, Christy. Great to see you. Let's talk about Chloe. So she is smart. She can present herself as normal. She's learned to mimic feelings that she doesn't necessarily feel. So she can, she can look very timid and very small. She can be kind of sexy depending on what she thinks the other person needs or wants or expects from her. So this is what's interesting about psychopaths. They don't feel these feelings of empathy themselves or anything, but they learn, because they're very smart, how to get what they want from the situation. So what I found fascinating about being in Chloe's perspective is to be in the mind of a psychopath, because I think we throw that term around a lot. Oh, she's so psycho. Yeah. My ex's, my husband's ex, what a psycho, whatever. Yeah. But this is an actual term. This is a condition, and people manage to live their life with this condition just like any other condition. So it was so fascinating to be in her mind. I loved that. Welcome, Christy. Welcome, Carisha. Welcome, Carrie. Welcome, Madeline. Welcome, Joan. Welcome, Sharon. Welcome, everybody. So great to have you. Any questions for Vera, Ph.D.? Get them going in the comments. Now, she is clinical. She's calculated. She's smart. She's hot. She knows it. And I kind of love that she's like, I'm here to kill Will. He has 30 days to die, 30 days until he dies. I mean, that's how I picture her saying, she's like, he must die. And then she kind of navigates, I'm going to take the less good room. She arrives at college. She's like, I want the bigger room because I should have that because it's nicer, but I'm going to take the smaller room because I can crawl out on the fire escape and go kill Will easier. And I love how she's so calculated and so smart, but just doesn't, is it a moat or something? I mean, it's just so fascinating to be in the mind of an actual psychopath. And I also love, Vera, knowing that you have your PhD, knowing you got that doctorate, I can trust as a reader that everything I'm reading in here is accurate, is right. So you talk about 2% of the population here in the United States is psychopaths, but a larger population of the people who are in prison, more of them are because they don't have empathy. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the original one of the major researchers who's influential in the study was Robert Hare, and he studied prison populations. And that's kind of what the birth of the study of psychopathy came from, prison populations, not from what we'd call the normal population. So it isn't surprising that there's a disproportionate number of psychopaths in prison, because they have this characteristic of being reckless, for one, and then also this characteristic of being callous, and then also a parasitic lifestyle. So, I mean, that can kind of lend itself to crime. They're not a population that responds well to the idea of don't commit this crime because it's wrong, because they don't have conscience, or don't commit this crime because it hurts someone, or don't commit this crime because of some future punishment that will come. They're reward seeking. So it's this thing I want now, and this kind of like recklessness, they just throw themselves towards it, and that's how you end up with a higher degree in the prison population. But I mean, the percent, some people say the percent is 1%, some people say it's 3%, but the end result is that there are a lot of people like wandering around in our day-to-day lives who are probably psychopaths. I mean, if you've ever watched that documentary about Bernie Madoff, the way he talks, he expresses anger towards his victims for being victimized by him.
Weird.
Yes.
So when Chloe is calculatedly planning to kill Will, when Bernie is calculatedly planning to rip us all off for millions of dollars and live well, they always put the blame on the other person. Will shouldn't have done this. The suckers shouldn't have been suckers. They put the blame on other people. I've also heard about these mirror neurons. Is that why they don't take any responsibility? Is that why they don't feel empathy? Because they don't have mirror neurons in their brain?
Yeah, they're starting to do research on the kind of like neuroscience behind it, and like differences in the brains between psychopaths and people who aren't. And they are finding differences, and there's also differences, I think, in the amygdala that have to do with fear responses, because they also don't feel fear. So, I mean, I think there's a really fair argument to be made that these are people that are born this way, and that there's some fMRI. fMRI is functional MRI, so it's MRI that's occurring while you're doing an activity. So there's some MRI research about that when they're looking at stimuli that's supposed to make them feel an emotion, they're not feeling the emotion, but they're thinking about feeling the emotion. In a way of trying to like copy something that they're not actually feeling. And that's a different process than actually feeling an emotion.
So that would look like if I was a psychopath, I would, and you just shared something like, oh, my dog died or something really horribly sad, but I did not care about your dog or anybody else because I'm a psychopath. But I looked at you and then you were kind of like waiting for me to be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Because I learned, because I'm smart, that as a psychopath in my this imaginary scenario, I would then say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Not because I was actually sorry or sad, but because I had learned that that's what you expected of me. And as a psychopath, I know how to navigate that.
Yeah, but also you would do it because you want something. You know, you want to be seen as someone who's sympathetic, or you want to curry that person's favor. So you know, there's like a little bit of a thing where you're like, oh, here's what I should be doing. We should be doing the right thing. This is like the notion of superficial charm of, you know, these people are often very charming, you know, con men, that they really pull other people in by mimicking like the perfect emotion at the right time. And then you suddenly find yourself, you know, enamored with this person.
Wow, I did not know that. This is just, I mean, it's just so fascinating. To learn about this. Welcome, Gabriel. Welcome, Sonia. Welcome, Ali. Welcome, Mona. Great to see you all. Thanks so much for joining us. Let us know if you have any questions for Vera. So, Vera, what was your research process for researching Chloe, the 18-year-old hot girl, leggings wearing psychopath who is at college planning to kill Will, and finds herself in not so much the hunter as the hunted?
Yeah, so I did look at I looked at the DSM, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, which is the it's sort of like a guidebook for psychologists, and they use it to diagnose people, but also the insurance codes. But anyway, psychopathy is not in there. Antisocial personality disorder is, which is similar. Some people say they're different, but there I have a giant textbook around here somewhere, the Handbook of Psychopathy, which is a actual textbook for like real people who are in the field. So it's not written for people that aren't used to reading these sorts of articles. But I read through a lot of that had some of the neuroscience. It had some interesting articles about the scale they developed to measure psychopathy, serial killing and psychopathy, sexual violence and psychopathy. So I did do some of that. But I mean, a lot of it is, you know, I wanted it to be informed by research, but fundamentally the characters are the most important thing, because like every psychopath in the book is completely different than the last.
Fascinating. Oh, welcome, Christina, Bookstagrammer extraordinaire. She is a politically read girl on Instagram. She would like to know, what is a current read that you've enjoyed? And are there any particular authors that influence your writing? Great question, Christina. Vera, give us the skip.
I have a book right here that I just finished like yesterday, Acts of Desperation by Megan Nolan. She is published by my British publisher, HarperCollins Vintage, an Irish author. And this is a book about a destructive relationship, but it's about the ways that women kind of obliterate themselves in relationships. It's just like searing. I think women should read this book. Authors that influence my writing, I would say, while I do read a lot of literary fiction, like probably 70% of what I read is literary fiction, I was really influenced by Stephen King. I grew up with Stephen King. He's just, I'm going to be a diehard fan of his, no matter what books he's writing. I always felt that like an intimacy with his writing, and then this sort of old-fashioned sensibility of like characters, even though they're in these ridiculous premises, he always had good characters, and I grew up with those books. So I mean, you never forget the books that you grew up with.
What do you think made you feel the intimacy? I'm intrigued by your use of the word intimacy. What do you think cultivated that intimacy with books like It and
Oh,
Monsters
I love
and
it.
real.
Yeah, it's my favorite. Yeah. I think it's, well, for one, he would write these long author's notes to his readers where we call them the constant reader. But he also just the way that he would discuss kind of characters and interactions between them, and you just if you read like 15 books by the same author, you really feel like you know their writing. I mean, you don't know them, but you know their writing. And there are certain like turns that they do, and you're like, oh, this is a familiar Stephen King turn, and that kind of makes you feel intimate with them.
Ooh, interesting. I love that you use the word intimate. Oh my goodness, we have celebrity author Hank Phillippi Ryan, who's actually hosting Vera tomorrow
Yes, for
as
my
well.
launch day.
The Queen. We're talking about the King. We're talking about Stephen King. We got the Queen in the house. Hey, Hank, good to have you here. She's saying The Stand.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Is her favorite King book. So
that's another great one. That's like number 2 on my list.
yay! So much in common here. Oh, this is absolutely fantastic. I love this. And Vera shared that her favorite book is The Stand. Hank is saying, aw, hugs and kisses. Hank, I am so excited to host you, Queen Hank, on September 26th at 7 p.m. We're going to talk about your book, Her Perfect Life, coming up in a few weeks. So everybody tune in there because we got a lot to talk about. Hank, great to have you. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're so honored to have you here. Okay, making sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, Christy said, oh, which of his books are your favorite? She loves The Outsider. Have you read that one, Vera? What did you think?
I didn't. I started watching the TV show. I mean, I think his favorite of mine is It, but I also really loved The Drawing of the Three and The Wastelands from the Dark Tower series. And then I have some of the novellas that are in different seasons. So the Shawshank Redemption, Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption, and The Body, which is just a story of male friendship. And I love reading about friendship in general, but specifically male friendship, which is a theme he returns to repeatedly.
Very cool. Why do you like to read about male friendship?
I love reading about female friendship too, but I think that women enjoy this, like, we can have these intense female relationships, and we do. Most women do. Whereas men, I guess, very frequently you'll meet a normal man who like doesn't have friends or has one friend from childhood, and you're like, who do you talk to about all your problems? And guys will just be like, yeah, I don't really have friends. So I'm very interested in instances where men do develop deep friendships with each other. I mean, that's kind of why I was drawn to reading a lot of military fiction. It forces them to create these bonds that then they're allowed to have because of just, I guess, I don't know, the stigma against male intimacy. But I mean, men, like, if there are any men listening, you're missing out on one of the most precious things that you can have, platonic friendship.
Absolutely. So as a female, I treasure my female friendships. My female friendships are so dear to me. We talk and text all the time. If I don't hear from my best friend every single day, I'm literally like, are you okay? Do you hate me? Why haven't we texted in the last 3 minutes and 25 seconds? Not that I'm counting. Of course I'm counting. Where are you? Why haven't you texted me? Like, my female friendships are so close. They're like my sisters. I mean, I just love them. And I also love my sisters, but who happen to be really good friends of mine. But female friendships are fascinating. Meanwhile, my husband will say something like, oh yeah, he's a really good friend of mine. And I'll be like, you haven't talked to that guy in 3 years. And he'll be like, oh yeah, but we're still really good friends. How can you be friends with someone you haven't talked to in 3 years? And he'll be like, we don't need to talk every day. Really? Because I need to talk every day.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love it. Okay, I want to get to make sure I'm not missing any questions here. Ooh, Sharon, great question. So is it that a psychopath isn't afraid of being arrested or incarcerated, like just no fear, but they believe that they're smarter than law enforcement, so they do not believe they could be outsmarted by police? She said that's badly worded. No, Sharon, we know what you mean. But basically, she wants to know, if they don't fear being caught, what causes them to hide their behaviors? Sharon, you must be reading my mind because I am dying to ask this question.
Yeah.
Give us a skinny.
So this is really interesting. It's kind of a two-part question. One, I think it's both. Two things at the same time. It's one, lack of fear of punishment. Two, they also tend to be narcissistic. So they probably do believe that they have outsmarted the police. But the last part of her question about why do they hide their behaviors, They don't. I mean, there's an interesting chapter in this Handbook of Psychopathy about serial killers, and I just assumed that like, you know, a lot of serial killers are probably psychopaths. And in this chapter, they go through the case histories of, I think 7 or 10 like very famous serial killers, and discover that only one of them was a psychopath, Ted Bundy. And some of these serial killers did very extreme things, if you know anything about Ed Kemper or Jeffrey Dahmer. But the premeditation and stuff that one might do to hunt and go out and kill someone, that's not reckless. And one of the characteristics of a psychopath is that kind of recklessness. So a lot of the behaviors that you see in a serial killer is not necessarily psychopathic. So, I mean, Chloe is kind of an interesting character because she is very kind of like planning things out ahead of time. The reality is that for any diagnosis you have, people are different. You know, you could have someone who is clinically depressed, but still leaves the house every day, dressed, goes to work, does well at work, sees their friends. But that doesn't look like the typical person with depression. But everyone's a little different. I mean, Chloe is someone who's managed to maintain a high GPA despite, you know, having an element to her that's impulsive and reckless. So I try to show her impulsiveness and recklessness in other ways, where she tries to tamp it down of like, that's not good for my plan. I want to go do that, but I shouldn't. But she is kind of like a little bit reckless and impulsive in other ways. I don't want to give a spoiler. A certain scene with a geode, that's like her being impulsive. Not a good idea, but she does something. So it's kind of a mixture.
Very cool. Lori Lee, hey girl, good to see you. A member of Mystery and Thriller Mavens. Good to have you here. Thanks for tuning in. Great question. Now, Vera, you look very youthful, but I'm guessing since you have your PhD, you're not 18. No. Lori would like to know, unless you were, I mean, maybe you're a child genius. Maybe you are only 18. Lori would like to know, how easy was it to write a character that was so young? Yes, I'm wondering that too. I'm 44. I don't think I could write an 18-year-old. Who knows what these kids are thinking?
I just turned 41. I think that, so I remember being in college, and I remember the sorts of things that we did. The one thing that I just like did not get is like Instagram and Snapchat. I had to talk to my slightly younger, cooler friends about like, so if you DM someone, like what exactly happens? And recently I had to join Instagram because of this book coming in, like things are happening and I don't know what they are. So yeah, I don't think that stuff I needed a little help on, but I do think I could put myself in the mindset of someone 18. She's very much focused on her own thing, her own project and her grades and her little life. She's not someone who's thinking about the broader, wider world. So it didn't feel hard to me. I hope that she did come off as someone who's 18. So hopefully that was successful.
She did come up to 18 to me. So well done. Lori, thank you for the question. Vera, thank you for the answer. Loving this conversation, y'all. Thank you so much. Okay. Ooh, I'm making sure I didn't miss any questions here. Okay. Sharon said she's always loved Stephen King. Yay, King fans in the house. Lori is saying Carrie was her favorite King book. Christina's saying The Outsider and The Institute were her favorite King books. Loving this. Karen said your mug. Hey, Karen, good to have you. Remember
Monsters Inc.
there.
Mug.
She said your mug is outstanding. Hold that mug up. What is that with your one eye, your Cyclops?
It's the guy from Monsters Inc. The character. I can't remember the character's name.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Mike Wazinski.
Yay! Karen said she just read the summary and of this book, and the main character sounds so interesting. She is looking forward to reading it. Yes, Karen, interesting. Yes, interesting. Absolutely. I was fascinated to read the description and to dive into this book because she is so interesting in how she shapes herself to be what she thinks, to be what people want of her. When she's interacting with her professor, the guy running the study that she has voluntarily signed up for, she's very meek and very small and, oh, help me, sort of helpless. Yes. And then, the boys down the hall, she's kind of thinks they want her to be sexy. Or she said, you have to be hot enough for them to want to sleep with.
Yeah.
And she's very calculated in how she thinks these things through. It's just fascinating and chilling. I have to read something else before I go to bed. I got to get that ick off me,
Oh.
but I also got to keep reading. Christina is saying the book is even better than the series when it comes to the King books we were chatting about a few minutes ago. Sorry, I missed that one in the moment. Christina, thanks for chiming in. As always, appreciate that. Lori is saying she's 45 and we didn't have all that social media stuff back then.
We
Exactly.
didn't have it when I was, it was, I had a dial-up internet and that was it.
Exactly. Right. Beep, beep. Yeah, I can't even make those noises.
I mean, the one thing that I did want to do is include technology in the book, because I think what a lot of people don't do is not acknowledge the fact that people text each other or Google something immediately. And then, oh, it's cheating. You're writing about the modern world. People use their phones. So you got to include the phones and the internet and all the other stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Karen says she's thankful for not having any social media. Amen. What a relief. I can't imagine having to live up to that Instagram airbrushed version of reality that the kids have to live with right now. Oh, Karen saying Mike Wazowski is the mug. Thank you, Karen, for letting us know. Oh, TL says Pet Cemetery was an excellent study in parental grief. I love books that delve into human emotions to tell a story.
He says that he says that that's the one book that he kind of regrets publishing because it was just so raw. I forget, he was writing about something in his own life, and that it's just such a dark book with kind of no hope at the end. And most of his books are kind of optimistic at the end. And I think I'm the same. I think all my books kind of end sort of positive. This book ended as positively as it could, I think.
But it sounds like that's what you connected to with Stephen King's writing, in a way, what you as a psychologist, as a PhD in psychology, wanted to provide for other people, that delving into the human emotions of very different types of people while also keeping us on the edge of our seat.
Yeah, I wanted to take you inside the head of someone that maybe you wouldn't think you would ever root for or relate to, but that you do.
Yes. Yes. Oh my God. So I read the back cover and I was like, oh, a psychopath. Like, clearly I will be rooting for her to get discovered, rooted out, whatever. But instead I was like, come on, Chloe, you can do it. Like, live, lady.
Yeah, she's just too charming.
She really is. I want to help her. I want to save her. I need to pull myself. I need to work on my own boundaries, clearly. Sharon saying, I'm 65. What's this internet thing, JK? Exactly. This is Facebook, Sharon. Welcome for having that. Sometimes I don't know myself. Okay, Vera, you have an interesting story about how this book got published. Give us the inside scoop, the behind the scenes secrets to how you got this book deal.
Sure. Yeah. So this is the third book that I attempted to get an agent for. And, I got an agent in November of 2019. And then we worked on some revisions for a while to get it ready for submission to editors. So you go out to the big 5 publishers. And then I finished those revisions the first week of March 2020. And then I wrote my agent like, this coronavirus thing kind of seems bad. And she's like, yeah, I think we should wait and not send it out because things are getting kind of hectic. So we waited a few months, and in the course of those few months, I was completely on lockdown. Like, I live alone. I was not seeing friends. It was that period of time where people were like, you should wash your mail and like all this other stuff. So I was completely isolated, going crazy. And then it was the last week of May, which was around the time the George Floyd protests started, which in DC were huge. Like, everything was shut down. There were helicopters there everywhere. So it was very emotional for me, particularly as a person of color living in America. And then we went out for submission on like a Thursday. And then we started to get offers on a Monday. And I was just like astounded. Like, they went to acquisitions over the weekend, I guess. And then texted my 2 besties who are my writing buddies who live in DC. And I hadn't seen them in months because of COVID. And we're like, we have to get together. We'll be outside. We'll stay 10 feet apart just because we have to celebrate, because we'd all read this book. Well, I wrote the book, but they read the book, the first draft. They read multiple drafts. We'd all been working so hard. And then we had this like incredibly positive moment where in the middle of like all these terrible, chaotic things happening. So, I mean, everything that happened with this book, like that deal, and then we got the deal with Vintage UK, and then there's a film TV deal. All of this was happening during the like peak of COVID. So it was literally like the best of times and the worst of times. But everything that we did to produce the book, all of the editing, all of the publicity, all the marketing was done virtually, on Zoom or via email. And I didn't actually get to meet my agent or my editor until a couple of weeks ago. It's the first time I saw them in person. So I think, I mean, the team at HarperCollins and at Vintage have been incredible to like do everything to make this book a success, even though everything was done in the pandemic. And, you know, my launch is not even in person because of COVID. So we're doing it virtually. So it's been, I will say, having the book deal has gotten me through the darkest of the darks in 2020. And I'm happy to say that it has, my friends have said the same to me, that my book deal has gotten them through the darkest times of 2020. And I'm happy, and I'm really happy when people say that reading this book took them away from everything that's going on, because sometimes that's what you need.
That is what you need. And what an incredible, heartening, heart expanding, hope rendering, hope bolstering, spirit bolstering experience to, I mean, it can take, some people are on submission for months or years.
Yeah.
And I mean, Catherine Stockett, author of The Help, famously shared that she was rejected by 65 agents before she finally got an agent, and then she was out on submission forever. And to, I mean, that's amazing to be offered to go out on sub on Friday and to have a book deal on the table on Monday, unheard of, and speaks to the excitement that people have about this book, and that the story, the message, the writing resonated. People wanted to have it. So well done, and you earned that. So
yeah, just to add to that, if anyone here is a writer, I mean, this is the third book I queried. It's the sixth book I've written. I probably queried 300 agents before I ended up getting an agent. If you add across the three books, I've been rejected hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. So you don't magically get a book deal in 2 days. It's what goes into that, behind that, is the fact that I've been like working really hard for many, many years. And some of it is luck, and some of it is the fact that I didn't give up on the 299th time I was rejected.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Vera, because I think it is important that as authors and as women, we talk about rejection more. We talk about failure more, because I think we have this inherent cultural sense of shame that we have to hold up this fantasy and this fallacy of perfection. I'm fine. It just happened for me like that. I'm living the dream. And this is BS. I was trying to think of a polite word and I couldn't. This is crap. This is a lie. And it's important that we talk about the path. We talk about how hard it is, because it normalizes for other people. Because if we're holding up this facade of perfection, it makes everyone else feel really bad that that's not happening for them. So I thank you for your authenticity. Thank you for your openness. Thank you for your transparency. This is empowering other people in the audience and other women in the audience to be brave and to rise and to try again. So this is amazing. Thank you. And I want to share that I'm actually moderating a panel for the Desert Sleuths Conference, actually on September 11th. And I am moderating a panel on the path to success with Isabella Maldonado, who I hosted 3 weeks ago, and Peng Shepard, who I will be hosting shortly. And we're going to talk about this, and we're going to talk about rejection. We're going to talk about failure. We're going to talk about what it takes to make it, because this needs to be talked about more. And holding up this, pretending this didn't happen only makes the rest of us feel bad and makes it seem impossible. So thank you, Vera, for speaking this truth. That's amazing. Leslie, great question. She wants to know, do you know anyone who is a psychopath, Vera? And by the way, you look younger.
Thank you. We don't count my 40th birthday because it happened in 2020. So I think I do. I think if you imagine it on a scale from 1 being not psychopathic at all and 10 being like Ted Bundy, I think that I have met a couple of people who I would say are like a 5 or 6. They weren't dangerous. They were just people who were chronically selfish, manipulative, and one person who we would have a lot of circular conversations because I could not make them understand someone else's point of view. They just couldn't engage in perspective taking, no matter how hard. And that's frustrating if you're having an interpersonal conflict. And then after a while, I was like, is that psychopathy? Maybe. So, I mean, it's interesting. You can go look up the criteria online. You might know someone that is. And if you ever listen to any podcasts or something about these terrific con men, a lot of con men have a lot of these characteristics where they're so charming, they draw you in, they tell you about lots of lies, you catch them, but then they convince you, they gaslight you. So I think it's pretty common in that kind of con men sort of area.
Okay, so Vera, let's talk about how to identify a psychopath, because if you are saying something and the person is responding like Chloe appropriately, oh, that's sad, oh, I'm sorry, or whatever, how do you know that person isn't really feeling that? I mean, you gave us a couple clues right now. So someone who literally will not see the other person's point of view, just is like, nope.
Yeah. So it's the lack of empathy, callousness thing. That's one kind of component. Another is impulsiveness. Another is superficial charm. Another is manipulative behavior. I think those are most, if not all of the criteria. But I think the one that kind of stands out the most is the lack of empathy, because humans, the way we live together in a society, empathy is such a key trait for social interactions. So I think when someone lacks empathy, is kind of pretty easy to pick up on. The superficial charm, that might be harder. Recklessness, a lot of people are reckless, but when someone is really callous, that's pretty unusual, I think. And usually you find out because they end up hurting you. And do they have a pattern of repeatedly doing this to people across multiple different people?
Okay. So callousness, manipulation, recklessness, super charm, and most of all, lack of empathy, which you won't, if they're hiding it from you, you won't know until they actually just hurt you and then just don't care.
Yeah. Or maybe just, talking about something else you're watching a news story about refugees and you're like, oh God, that's sad. And they don't have any of that kind of emotion, or don't seem to be able to put themselves in other people's shoes to feel what they're feeling.
Oh yeah. Okay. This is fascinating. This is, just to have this cheat sheet of what to, stumble across, because we meet a lot of people in our lives. Surely we must have met someone who is. So now we know what to look for. Thank you, Vera. Okay, I want to make sure. I just saw I missed another comment, so I'm just scrolling back. Oh, okay. Here is a good one. Christina is saying, Murdered by the Book. This is one of the best conversations I've ever watched. Oh my gosh, Christina Powers, thank you. High praise from you, ma'am, especially since you are a book influencer, a Bookstagrammer extraordinaire. Thank you so much. And I give full credit to Vera for sharing her information and her knowledge and all of this fabulous information. So thank you. Let me just make sure I'm not missing anybody. Oh, okay. Here's another one from a great comment here from TL. She is saying, I am editing my first draft now. I am optimistic, but also realistic when it comes to hard work. I love hearing stories like yours, Vera. Congratulations on your debut. Yay, TL. Get it. You get it. And if you're writing a mystery, come back and I'll host you. How about that? You heard it here first. Okay, let me make sure. Oh, Lori. Okay. Lori says she's immediately assessing people I know for psychopathy. Exactly. Me too. That when I get off of here, that is how I shall spend the rest of my night. I'll report back later. Vera, let's talk more about the process of writing. Sure. Okay, you have gotten incredible press. So you got an incredible reviews. So Booklist awarded you, and I always like to be careful to say awarded, not gave, because you earned this, I start review raving. Kurian expertly threads revenge and cat and mouse story arcs with Chloe's frank show-stealing narration. A bar-raising debut. Zing, high praise. Kurian's highly anticipated thriller will undoubtedly lead fans of Gone Girl, Jeff Lindsay's Dexter series, and Patricia Highsmith's Tom Ripley novels to hope for Chloe's return. Congratulations and wow. TL says that sounds great. It's a crime thriller. Thank you. TL, hit me up when your book is out. I will interview you, and then we'll tell the story about how you went from audience member to guest of honor. How about that? And that'll be your story and you can share the behind the scenes on how you see and how you failed, and then how you won and how you ultimately succeeded. And you can inspire someone else. That's what we have to do. Share it on, right? Robin Wasserman, who was a Penn Faulkner finalist and who I was delighted to interview right before she was, or I guess a few months before she was nominated, raves that this is a powerful puzzle of a murder mystery. I love that. As impossible to solve as it is to put down. What starts as a delicious thriller becomes a fascinating investigation of amorality, vengeance, and redemption. A powder keg of a debut. Vera, congratulations. Christina is saying this has Dexter vibes for her too.
I definitely watched Dexter too. I won't acknowledge the end of the series, which I found dissatisfying, but he's a really interesting character in that he's kind of similar.
I love that. Sharon said, Christina is correct. This conversation has made me pre-order this book. Yay. Maybe stay up past midnight to start reading. Which brings me to the fact that we are here to support independent bookstores, y'all. I want to remind you that tragically one per week has gone out of business, shuttered their doors forever since the pandemic. And today we're gonna vote with our wallets and vote with our dollars and order Vera's book here tonight. Support a female-owned independent bookstore, one of 3 dedicated mystery bookstores in the country. I'm putting a link in the comments right now. Grab your copy. You're going to love it. And then to continue the conversation, join my Facebook group, free and open to all. We're going to talk more about Vera's book and Chloe and all the good things. Stephanie, welcome. She said, I picked this one up on Saturday. Yes, Stephanie, fantastic. Thank you so much. Susan was saying, ooh, tasty question from Susan. What 3 writers would you invite to a dinner, including King?
Wow. Okay. I mean, I have to put Stephen King in there.
Okay.
I think
who's coming to this dinner party? Because we're all coming. Who's the guest of honor?
I think, kind of weird. I would say Elena Ferrante, who's anonymous, but maybe she could come in a costume, and that'll be fine. I'm just so. If you haven't read her Neapolitan series, it's 4 books about a pair of girlfriends who are poor living in Naples, Italy. It's just beautiful, so beautiful, and surprisingly a page turner for a book where it's just about normal life. So I would include her.
And who's your 3rd guest of honor? Drum roll, please.
I think I would say maybe David Mitchell. I mean, I think he's someone out there that just does really different things, and he's just extremely intelligent, and I would love to just pick his brain.
Okay, well, that sounds like a rollicking good time. Susan, thank you for the fabulous question. Vera, thank you for the tasty answer. Leslie said she is so looking forward to reading this book. Yay. And Leslie, you know where we'll be discussing it over in Mystery and Thriller Mayors. I want to know what you think. So get reading and report back later. Okay, I have got to read just a few more of these reviews. So the New York Journal of Books said it is fun, entertaining, and hard to put down. A twisty whodunit with a satisfying conclusion. Vera, let's talk about twists. What are your thoughts on twists these days? I know you've got some. Give it to us.
Yeah, so I'm very anti-twist.
Okay.
I think
why are you anti-twist, Vera?
I think that the thriller genre has become specifically the thriller genre has become very obsessed with twists, where like every book has to have twist, 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 or like a big twist at the end. And I just sort of feel like I'm writing an article about this. Hopefully it'll come out soon. But I think that sometimes the twists are not achieved in an honest way. It's just a twist for the sake of like, well, no one expected that because no one expects aliens to come down and zap you, you know? And I think like I'm kind of an old-fashioned storyteller, like Stephen King. Like I want characters to drive the story, and not have everything, because sometimes it feels like a book is just a vehicle for the twist, and the book should be a vehicle for the characters, I think. And I mean, I guess it depends on what you consider a twist. I think there's one twist in my book, but some people will think it's twist after twist after twist. But sometimes those are just plot points. Like a twist is something that should really that really changes your perspective on what's happening. Like in The Sixth Sense, when you realize, spoiler, that he's been dead all along. It's not a twist when you get to the end of the mystery and you find out, here are all the clues that lined up, and it's this person who did it. That's just the ending of the mystery. So, I mean, I knew that people would read the book expecting there to be like crazy twists. But I think for me, there are some unexpected things that happen. I don't view them as twists, maybe one, but I think a lot of the things that happen are just when you're studying a mystery, sometimes you uncover a new thing. I mean, that's not a twist. That's like a clue, or the investigation makes a turn. So I feel like it's a compliment when people say this is a very twisty book. I think that's their way of saying it's entertaining, or they didn't something unexpected happened. But I also didn't want it to be the case where you're supposed to be. A lot of people should be able to figure out the ending. Not everyone. So I don't think it's a failure of mine if you figured out the ending. So if you're like, I figured out the twist, like, yeah, you're supposed to. It's not supposed to be a secret. It's a mystery. You're supposed to put the clues together. So I mean, that's just my soapbox about thrillers.
Thank you for coming to Vera's TED Talk about
yes.
twists. But this is resonating because Christina says, I am obsessed with this perspective, Vera, and I totally agree. Jody says, I'm with Vera. I love a great twist, but a mystery thriller doesn't have to be one it doesn't have to be one to be a great read. Yeah. Jody, amen. I totally agree. Leslie is saying readers are evolving during the pandemic. Good for you for sticking to your beliefs about twists. Like everything else, we tend to want everything up front in the first chapter and then this big twist ending. Leslie, I totally agree. Jody, I totally agree. Christina, I totally agree. Absolutely. And I am loving that we're having this conversation about twists, because I think I'm seeing the same thing where it's like, people are like, twist me, twirl me, I make me shocked where I don't see it coming. And it's like, but shouldn't we just be here for a great story? And it's okay if I guess the ending, because I want to, be on this journey together. It doesn't have to be this whiplash. I don't have to sustain whiplash by the end of the book.
Yeah. I think one of the greatest compliments I got about the book is someone read the first draft and you're like, yeah, I wanted to know who was committing the murders, but really I wanted to know how these characters would solve the mystery. And that to me was like, yes, you should care about how the characters solve the mystery, not about you solving the mystery.
Exactly. TL saying twists can destroy the book, but well written, they can lock clues together. Well said, TL. Absolutely.
Yes.
Lori Lee is saying, I agree too. A twist shouldn't be added if it doesn't serve the story. Oh my God. Okay. Who else is loving this conversation? I'm just like, yum, 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 yum. This is so great. I'm really enjoying this because we're talking about craft. We're talking about characters. We're talking about what matters, what resonates and why. And we shouldn't just be, doing something for the sake of it. So thank you all for sticking with me. I literally I love my group. I love my fam here, my Mystery and Thriller fam. Y'all are the best as always. Okay. We are out of time. We got 2 minutes left. Vera, parting thoughts, or anybody, one last question, get it going in the comments. Vera, what do you wish I'd asked? What do you want to share? What do you want people to leave this book having learned, experienced?
If you were taken away, entertained by it, great. Pass it on to someone else who you think would love it. This is my first book. I would like to write more. So the best thing that you can ever do for a writer is rate, review, and pass it on the book to someone else.
I love that. Stephanie would like to know, what are your favorite novels on your nightstand right now? Love that question, Stephanie.
I'm currently reading a cozy mystery by another 2021 debut called Arsenic and Adobo.
Oh my gosh!
I've never read a cozy before, so I'm loving it. It's like, there's murder, but also there's like joking around and people eating delicious food, which I'm pro that.
Absolutely. That's from Minotaur, right?
I think it's Berkeley.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that because that's a Latina author, and I love seeing authors bring their culture to the page. This is absolutely
Yeah,
fantastic.
I think she's Filipina.
Is she? Okay, I thought maybe I'm thinking of a
Yeah.
different author. I think
Yeah.
the Adobo had me confused.
Other adobo.
The other Adobo. Karen is saying, great conversation. I've read too many books lately that are full of twists for convenience. Oh, Karen, yes. Twists for convenience is the exact way to say that. Thank you. Oh, Christina's saying Berkeley. Thank you, Christina, for keeping me honest. Lori's saying, I loved Arsenic and Adobo. I highly recommend it. We need more writers of color to represent. Absolutely. Absolutely. I actively want to support and amplify writers of color and amplify their voices. And I'm proud to have as diverse a lineup as I do. And I want to have an even more diverse lineup. So send them my way. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Vera. Congratulations on your pub day tomorrow. Everybody, I'm putting the link in the comments right now. Grab your copy, and I will see you at 8 p.m. with the authors of both sides, all Latino authors. See you in 10 minutes.
Bye. Thank you.
All right.